of modern furry discourse. It's either, you guys are a bunch of animal-loving addicts who want to groom kids, or it's like, being a furry saved my life. Only like 6.626 times 10 to the negative 34% of the fandom is in it for adult reasons. You're just an anti-furry who's looking to hurt people for doing something they enjoy. Both of these are absolutely disgusting oversimplifications of an infinitely complex and intricate fandom. That discrepancy is what I've set out to solve with this video. In making this video series, my team and I hope to create the end-all be-all for both analytical and anecdotal evidence about the furry fandom through a variety of methods. Large dataset analysis, interviews with high-profile furries of all types regardless of gender, race, sexuality, adult, and safe for work, as well as anecdotal data collection from me and my team.
Damn it.
I want all discourse on furries, whether it be the bad parts of the fandom, freaky-deaky parts of the fandom, the good parts of the fandom, and everything in between to be routed towards the discoveries made in this video series. But firstly, why am I even doing this? Why dedicate so much of my already busy life to talking about a group of people who like anthropomorphic animals? Because I'm sick of it. Sick of all the bullshit coming from every side of the debate, furry and anti-furry. It's two groups completely deadlocked and arguing over undefendable and fallacious arguments, rather than seeking any form of mediation whatsoever. I'm going to take a pretty bold claim here. I believe I have one of the most complete and nuanced views of the fandom out of 99% of people on the internet, considering I've never actually been a member and never desired to be, but I've been around furries for almost half a decade and have learned a lot about how it has changed people that I know, people I once knew, and how it's even affected people I know outside of the fandom. That, chiefly, is why I want to make this video series. The one event that sparked me to make this video was an incident on Twitter involving a well-known anti-furry and a furry they were fighting against. Of course, they got into the debate of NSFW addiction in the furry fandom, and at some point during the argument, they both cited the same outdated and loosely organized survey published by First Science that has a sample size of a whopping, unimaginably huge 455 people. In 2013, two polar opposite viewpoints both citing a survey that doesn't even represent a large amount of furries. Although these research groups do have a high degree of integrity, they often provide unrealistic and immediately biased publications due to the simple fact that they often derive most of their results from small sample sizes and in-person events. While 10 years ago this may have been a more accurate representation of the fandom, in the current era of the fandom, this simply is not enough. The amount of furries primarily invested in online spaces has absolutely exploded since then, often including people under the age of 18, and more casual members that wouldn't even attend a convention in the first place. Although the research my team and I will be conducting is a little rough and tumble compared to First Science, given the fact that this research mostly applies to the online sphere means we can only get so close to 100% accuracy. In this vein, I also want to right my wrongs from my last general fandom discussion. You know, the furry community is doomed video and everything. It was poorly organized, largely self-centered, as, you know, my own experiences, and wasn't really objective. All of the data I will be collecting throughout this series will not be from my own experiences, but cold, hard, empirical data alongside the stories of those throughout the fandom who have something to say. I want to ensure that everyone has a voice, and that as many areas are covered as my team and I can possibly manage. To do that, we'll need some time, but keep in mind that we're doing everything in our power to ensure that, whatever results emerge from our research, it's the truth. No sugarcoating, no excuses, no bullshit. What you'll see is what you'll get. From here though, I'd like to say this and say it once. For the love of all that is currently within this plane of existence, an analysis of the furry fandom does not mean that I'm claiming any results I find are mutually exclusive to the fandom itself. None of this, but what about the XBHOO fandom in the anime community type shit that is used by people to partially or fully invalidate my claims I've made in the past. I'm saying here openly that this data is not meant to compare the furry fandom to any other fandom. End of story. I merely want to showcase data relating to the furry fandom itself. Got that? Great! Let's move on to the specifics of each part in the upcoming series and what we're planning on doing for each. Part 1 will be all about analytics. Essentially, we aim to gather as great a sample size as physically possible to tackle one of the most divisive parts of the fandom, its NSFW habits. The reason I want to focus an entire part on this is simple. The number one thing that alienates furries from broader pop culture is a perceived stigma surrounding their adult habits. Every time some stupid furry drama erupts on Twitter, the first thing everyone does is argue about NSFW material. So, to try and analyze how these habits have changed over time, my data collection team and I have been collecting data from a single source, E621. Now, hang on. You may be asking yourself why. Well, there's two reasons. For one, they have a highly functional and easy to use API, which, for those of you who have seen the sun more than once this year, means it's very easy to extract data about basically everything from the website's backend. It has a robust and relatively consistent tagging system, which allows us to collect data rather easily about things such as what artists draw, what type of content, how have certain types of art grown and changed over time, etc. And, for a second reason, is the sheer amount of people who use the site. There is no other website, other than maybe Fur Affinity, but their API is horrible, that has this level of participation that is also mostly exclusive to the furry fandom. Although I understand not everyone who uses the site is a furry, given the fact the site revolves around anthropomorphic animals, it's the only place on the internet where this data can be extracted with a reasonable degree of integrity. If you're not convinced of the scale of this operation yet, our sample size is not going to be a measly 400 people. Why don't you take a guess? 1,000? A little higher. 5,000? A little more. 20,000? Almost there. How about try 1 million accounts? And just in case you're concerned, this number includes our parameters to ignore accounts under a certain amount of activity. This insane amount of accounts, as I'm writing this script, is being analyzed by my data team to find correlations and trends that can answer many of the common criticisms thrown at the community. So far, we've made some preliminary discoveries, but I won't share them yet due to the low amount of surrounding context we will gain in the future from further analysis. But you may be asking, what about the people who don't use E6? What about other discrepancies that may result from a partially biased dataset? Well, part 2 is made to combat this. This part is meant to be the opposite of the previous one. A smaller sample size, a more personalized approach, more generalized data collection, among other things. The goal of this part will be to collect the stories of as many furries as possible, hearing what they have to say and asking them questions. The people being interviewed will be from all walks of life, involved in every corner of the fandom, and with a large variety of thoughts and opinions. I will also be attempting to survey various independent communities about more general questions relating to the fandom to offset the biases introduced by the previous part. Through this endeavor, I hope to, at the very least, do something that's never been done before. I'm not making this project to magically end hate against the fandom or to vindicate it. What, truly, I wish to do is to be as honest as possible with the fandom and lay its many flaws out in the open, while also proving that it really isn't as bad as your average 13-year-old Twitter user makes it out to be. So, if you're interested, come along for the journey as me and my team attempt to create the most in-depth analysis the furry fandom has ever seen.